Hi, third graders. It is time to talk about our story for the week. Our story is located in our Floppy book, and I am looking at Unit 1, Week 1, called Bruno's Home. You can find that on pages 22 through 27. When you read Bruno's Home, you will meet a bear named Bruno who is having a problem with his home. It's not big enough, it's not comfortable for him, and winter is coming soon. He is having a difficult time digging and removing the roots on his own, so a squirrel comes and offers their help. Bruno is pretty skeptical that the squirrel will be able to help him because the squirrel is so little. How could a squirrel help him do a job that a bear can't do? The squirrel says, "I think you need to be a little bit educated," and brings him a book. In this book, he reads the fable of the lion and the mouse. In that story, the mouse, even though very small, chews through the ropes that captures a lion and sets him free. Bruno learns the lesson that small things can be helpful and allows the squirrel to help him. The squirrel and the bear work as a team to make his home bigger, and he learns that his small squirrel friend was very helpful to him after all. So the first thing I want to talk about is genre. Genre is just a really big word for what type of story is it. Now, as soon as I heard the name Bruno for the bear, I thought, we don't really name bears in the wild actual human names. And then the bear talked, and then the squirrel talked, and then the bear read a book, and then they worked together as a team. So as I was reading, all of these things were jumping out at me that this is not a true story. It is not realistic. This genre is fantasy, which means the things that occur in the story are not possible in real life, and this includes animals talking. I also want to talk about the skill or strategy when reading, which is visualizing. Visualizing is when you read the text and put a picture in your mind from what you have read. Our author does a really good job of using vivid language. He says, Bruno shivered. A frosty wind blew through the forest. His paws felt like blocks of ice. The author does two things there. First of all, they use a lot of adjectives like frosty wind. And then they also use a simile, which is paws felt like ice, comparing the bear's paws to a block of ice. By using language like that, I can really get a mental picture in my mind of how cold the temperature is for this bear. Remember that bears have lots of fat and they're covered in hair. They're normally very warm animals. But if this bear Bruno is describing the wind as frosty and his paws feels like ice and the bear shivers, I as the reader can imagine that the temperature is really, really cold. And I am picturing this bear being very unhappy in his home. The next thing I want to talk about is some comprehension of the character. So I'm going to be talking about Bruno the bear. He's the main character in the story. And at the beginning of the story, Bruno has a want and also a need. He needs a new home. And at the beginning of the story, he has a couple of feelings. He feels tired. He's been working, and his home still isn't right. He also is very cold and grumpy. Remember when the squirrel first comes, he's not very friendly or inviting to the squirrel. He kind of writes him off, doesn't think he's going to be able to help. The bear, however, is able to change his actions from the beginning to the end. So at the beginning, bear doesn't accept help from the squirrel. But at the end of the story, the bear grows or changes. He learns a lesson that small things can help. And in this case, it was the squirrel. So now I'm going to make an inference about the character Bear, his traits, what he's like as a character. Because he was able to change in the story, I'm going to say that Bear is willing to learn and change. Bear is able to be a good teammate. Now, nowhere in the story did it say Bear was a good teammate. It didn't come right out and say he likes to learn or Bear changed his mind. But by using all the text evidence throughout the story, I can make those judgments about Bear as a character. I hope this helped you understand the lesson more that goes with your story, Bruno the Bear, or Bruno's Home. And I will see you next time.